It's October 2009 at the Tokyo Motor Show, and Lexus has just pulled the sheet off a car that's taken them almost a decade to build. It's a handmade carbon fiber supercar with a V10 that revved so fast a regular analog gauge cluster couldn't keep up with it. By almost every measure, it was a masterpiece.
That might very well be the best car I've ever driven.
But when it was finally listed for sale, there was a huge problem. Buyers stayed far away from it. In fact, the LFA only sold 62 cars its first year, and that's while its closest competitor, the Ferrari 599, sold 300 that exact same year. But that same car that nobody wanted, it's now worth over $1 million and is hailed as one of the greatest supercars on earth. So the question is, how does a car that fails so badly on release go down as one of the most legendary supercars ever? Now, first we gotta start with the backstory, because this is where the first domino fell for the LFA's fate. In 1991, Lexus kicked off their first attempt into the sports coupe segment with the SC300 and 400. With 225 horsepower and a 3-liter inline-6 in the 300, and then an LS-based V8 in the SC400, the SC offered rear-wheel drive, Toyota reliability, and a bunch of tuning potential. Build quality was second to none. It was a great entry into a segment that was already rapidly evolving. So in a lot of ways, the SC was a beautiful demonstration that Lexus was capable of doing great things in the general sports car segment. It also quickly proved that they were able to create an elegant and youthful vehicle without sacrificing the key tenets that made the brand what it is. However, the SC did have a problem, and in fact it was more of an identity crisis because nobody, not even Lexus, really understood where to go from here. So like a boat without an anchor, the SC kind of just floated through the sports coupe market without a real lane to call its own. They didn't have the same reputation for luxury as the Mercedes SL or the sporty athletic reputation of the BMW convertibles. And in 1993, as the A80 Toyota Supra absolute legend began to build its reputation as a legend in the car community, the SC became the mom car, the comfortable, safe option for those who couldn't handle the Supra. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean it was really a failure. In fact, people who loved them really loved them, enough that they sold more than 123,000 between 1992 and 2012. But the problem was, Lexus couldn't figure out how to convert a strong platform and product into a desirable, long-lasting performance culture. And so this is really where the cracks in Lexus's brand strategy started to show. There were ample opportunities for this to change, by the way. I mean, the A80 Supra was right there. It was right next door over at Toyota. So there was never a convertible Supra. So you would think that Lexus might use this opportunity to create an SC that could partner with the legend in progress over there. It was at this point Lexus decided we can make a choice. We could either continue to build on the luxurious, beautifully built platform as a V8 powered cloud, or we could take a huge gamble, take some notes from the Super guys, and build the next SC into something that could really punch above its weight class and scare the big guys into paying attention. They did not take that gamble. In 2001, Lexus gave us the SC430, featuring 200 sparkly horsepower and a complete abandonment of a sporty, competitive platform. So instead, they just kept going for that whole V8 convertible cloud thing, focused on build quality, reliability, and an effortless experience, which no problem there, totally get it. In fact, the SC430 ended up being a pretty solid car, and there's a ton of them running really well to this day, especially around here in Newport. But its floaty suspension and controversial body styling made a lot of people have very polarized opinions about this thing. Plus, it also didn't help that Top Gear rated it as the worst car in the history of the world.
Write down what you think is the absolute worst car on sale today. We've all written the same car.
Which essentially blew up its reputation in Europe. Basically, as mechanically solid as the SC430 was, it taught the general public that the Lexus Coupe wasn't really a sports car. It was a bit more of a boat. But hey, I'm sure Lexus saw how the Supra did against the SC, identified where they fell short, and wouldn't make the same mistake twice, right? But we can't get started on the story of Lexus without talking about the ISF. So in 2008, Lexus introduced their first concept of a performance brand called F-Sport and gave us the Lexus ISF. Now, the ISF wasn't a 2-seater coupe, but it was a 5-liter V8, making 416 horsepower, and gave the brand something to stand behind when it came to punching up the big dogs. The problem was, 2008 also gave us the E92 BMW M3, and the Mercedes C63 AMG, and the 2008 Audi RS4. So, you know, let's ignore the notorious rod bearings of the E92, head bolt problems of the C63, and occasional suspension issues with the RS4. And my question is, if you guys are really looking at the table with all of these options out there, are you really going to pick the company that last was recognized as creating the worst car in the history of the world? Probably not. And hey, that's coming from someone whose first ever dream car was the IS300 from Midnight Club. I had it on PSP. Tell me what you guys had if you played that game too. This is not about a roast on Lexus here, because they made and make incredible vehicles. The ISF wasn't a bad car. In fact, it lacked a lot of the complex and expensive reliability issues that European manufacturers were dealing with at the time. But Lexus was asking the world to take a risk on them in the performance market and go against the deeply established competitors. And as time has gone on, the ISF has become more appreciated and valued, especially after the decline of the V8 sports sedan market. But folks, I want you to remember, here is the core Lexus problem that we're talking about. But thank God they figured out what the market wanted after the ISF and found a way to sway customers away from those European sharks, right? Right? So in January 2005, a collaborative team from Toyota and Italian designer Leonardo Fioravanti, there we go, decided to put pen to paper and create one of the most legendary vehicles in automotive history, the Lexus LFA. Now, at the time, this was an absolutely insane project for them to take on, and the concept took so long to build up to, and there was a lot of time and effort that was put into with different ideas that were all being sketched out, but it all led up to its grand reveal at the Tokyo Motor Show in 2009. Now, the LFA was a brand new experiment for the brand, and frankly, it was clear that they were kind of just making this thing up as they went along. Instead of just designing a supercar, they were essentially teaching themselves how to build it at the same time. And so only 500 cars were planned for the world market, which featured an insane 4-liter V10, a carbon-reinforced plastic structure, and an engine sound that we still can't get out of our heads to this day. So let's talk about that V10, because I'm pretty sure that's what we all remember the most about this car. With a red line of 9,000 RPM, 553 horsepower, and featuring forged pistons, connecting rods, and solid titanium valves, Toyota and Yamaha Motors had teamed up to create one of the greatest engines in car history. There are a million videos discussing the amount of time and effort that went into developing this engine for the LFA, so we'll just walk through the highlights real quick. The original plan was to have an analog speedometer and rev counter, but the engine reached redline so fast that they had to switch to a digital one. Despite having 4 more cylinders, the V10 weighed less than Toyota's 3.5-liter V6 from the Land Cruiser. It also had a top speed of 202 miles per hour, and it did all of that while still exceeding Europe's strict emission standards at the time. It also marked a distinct difference from the design philosophies of the Japanese manufacturers, because over at Nissan, the GTR was making plenty of noise, but in a completely different way. And remember, the GTR was by no means cheap, but it represented accessible, brutal badasses of cars that could easily do a 10-second quarter mile if it really wanted to. And the LFA was designed to bridge the intersection of speed and sound, refine the almighty hell out of it, and then place the driver right in the dead center of it all. But what it didn't do was sell. Almost immediately, the LFA looked like a complete bust on the market. Though on paper, the car seemed to be a strong competitor, it just couldn't stack up against the other icons already making their presence known in the early 2010s. Cars like the Lamborghini Gallardo, which was $175,000 cheaper and still had a V10, the Ferrari 599 GTO with the legendary Enzo V12, and the 911 GT2 RS, which had 67 more horsepower and was $130,000 cheaper. So despite having incredible things to say about the engine, suspension tuning, and driving experience, many journalists, car buyers, and car enthusiasts just couldn't justify a $375,000 asking price. And it really didn't help that the single clutch transmission that Lexus had spent years perfecting was already aging out against the smoother, faster dual clutches like Porsche's PDK. And at the time, even though Lexus had spent so much time and money perfecting it to an almost insane degree, it was still thought of as just a super Toyota. And though the high-revving V10 was cool, an Italian V12 was much cooler, especially with the money that you're paying for the privilege. And by the way, I know that $375,000 might not seem like a lot of money nowadays, but keep in mind, that's $2010. In 2026, counting inflation, that would be closer to $575,000 for a Lexus. And so as a result, these things sat in dealerships for weeks or even months before getting any interest. So the question we've got to ask here is, how does something that bombed so bad at the beginning of its life rally back to become a generational icon in the car community? Well, here's the thing. Even though the Lexus LFA didn't sell well initially, it was only a matter of time before the car world understood exactly what it was looking at. Fast forward to 2026, and the LFA has become one of the world's most sought-after cars. With recent sales in the $800,000 to $1 million range, the car world has finally started to embrace it for what it really is. Especially as emission standards have evolved and the final V10s have died with the Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Huracan, the LFA stands out as an icon from a bygone era. One where manufacturers were able to create without barriers, dump an absolutely insane amount of money into a project, and then come out on the other side with something that shows the world world what a halo car truly should be. And in the time of hybridization and electrification, when the cars we love are losing more and more soul, the LFA proved that Lexus was more than capable of creating cars that find it again. So it's not that the LFA was a bad car at all, it's that we weren't ready to appreciate something like that until recently. And as you probably guessed, after the LFA, they must have learned their lesson and started to realize that they couldn't just toss another two-seater at the market and hope it sells, right? All right, folks, so we've seen this film before, right? We know exactly how this is gonna go. Let's talk about the RCF. So in 2014, Lexus gave us the RCF, aimed at kicking the ass of the BMW M4, featuring the classic formula: the naturally aspirated 5-liter V8, rear-wheel drive, incredible reliability, aggressive styling, and this time, they changed up their method this time. They actually raced it, and they kicked ass while doing it. Vassar Sullivan Racing, there's Jaggy here, in partnership with Lexus, took the RCF GT3 to 16 wins, 50 podium finishes, 28 pole positions, and won the 2023 IMSA GTD Driver, Team, and Manufacturer Championship. And I've actually seen this car in person, and it is badass. So hey, we've got a little racing credibility now, so that's got to translate into some recognition on the car market, right? Well, the problem here was that the RCF, and the RCF GT3 were all fundamentally different vehicles. Though the RCF offered a really solid experience, it just couldn't beat out the popularity and staying power of the F82 M4. And it certainly didn't help that the RCF was heavy. It was not a nimble, dynamic two-seater like an Alfa Romeo 4C or a Miata, but it was a 3,900-pound boat, even with its well-tuned suspension. So initially, Lexus didn't find much success with the RC. But now let's go back to that pattern, right? Because you know what's still holding value and looking great on the market now? Yeah, that big fucking V8 that no one liked before. It turns out, like all of the Lexus performance coupes before it, they tend to shine the most as the world around them changes. Rather than just being an immediate competitor for the big brands, Lexus has accidentally created cars that shine brightest when restrictions and regulations are at their strongest. So in that era of disappointing exhaust notes from the hybrids and the electrified cars now, Lexus chooses to represent a past, one that leans into natural aspiration, build quality, and long-term reliability. So now, as we look forward to the future, the question is, what has this pattern taught us about Lexus? And as the new electrified LFA arrives to the market, I think it's time we started looking very differently at this LC500, because this car is already following the Lexus lineage to a T. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thanks for that. I'm glad you guys stuck around. So Lexus fans, what do you guys think? Was I way off on my ideas of what the LFA was? Do you think the LC500 could follow in this pattern? And if so, could the LC500 end up being the next great classic car that we're sleeping on right now? I guess we'll find out together. But if you guys are new here, thank you guys for joining the channel. This is McPeak Performance. We are just getting our feet under us and we're building up together, but I'm so glad you guys stopped by. If you don't mind, leave a like and subscribe before you leave, and join the channel if you haven't before, because we have a bunch more fun card topics to talk about, and trust me, it's only going to get better from here. So I'm grateful for every single one of you guys on the other side of the screen, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.